The following resource is presented as an outreach of Calvary Community Church, a Calvary chapel in Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, Halloween's a big holiday. Here's some of the stats. Everywhere you go, you see Halloween decorations going up in the mall and all around near the end of September. Halloween's become big business. More than 50 million Americans celebrate Halloween each year. An estimated $400 million is spent on Halloween. And most of that is spent on candy, costumes, but they say about $60 million is spent on Halloween decorations. Every year, Halloween becomes more popular with adults. It's the third most popular holiday, especially for Americans in their 20s and 30s. Halloween is second only to Christmas for decorating. An estimated 50% of Americans decorate for Halloween. You got to keep in mind that 80% of Americans decorate for Christmas. An estimated 90% of all families with children ages 12 and younger will participate in trick-or-treating or some kind of costume party. And people are also sending each other more ghostly greetings. One year, over 35 million Halloween cards were sent, and that was up 3 million from the year before. Halloween's been haunting North America for hundreds of years. It goes way back to the time of our founding fathers, the time of the colonies and the colonists. But it really wasn't participated in very much until Irish settlers came over from in the 1840s, and they brought their Halloween customs and traditions with them. They were the real serious Halloweeners. Halloween's a holiday that all of us Christians need to think about. Its history is a little more spooky than you might think. On or near Halloween, we'll see people dressed up as spooks and goblins and witches and little Draculas and Snow Whites and miniature princes and fairies and clowns and even cows. How did it all start? Why do people knock on doors and shout, "Trick or treat"? Halloween's history, it's spooky. It has spiritual roots that might surprise you. Maybe you've even been tricked by treats yourself. Let me put it this way. When you think about the Passover celebration, at the beginning of the Passover, the little son will ask his father, Daddy, why is this night different from all other nights? And then the father tells him of the mighty works of God surrounding the exodus of Israel from Egypt. There's history behind that celebration. There's a reason for what they do. But what would you say if your child were to ask about Halloween? What if they were to say, why is this night different from all other nights? Why do we dress up? Why do we go door to door? Why do we put out these decorations? How do you honestly explain the ghosts and witches and the jack-o'-lanterns and the black cats, broomsticks, and devilish faces that are features of Halloween? A lot of Christians don't have the answers because they've been tricked by treats. Halloween's dark history goes way back to the ancient Druids, an order of Celtic priests who held the festival in honor of Samhain, the Lord of the Dead. These ancient occultists and sorcerers believed that Samhain called together the wicked souls that had died that year and had been condemned to inhabit the bodies of animals. On this night, called Samhain, or Samhain, hence we get Halloween, they were released to haunt the world in the form of ghosts and spirits and witches or elves. Black cats, which were also worshipped by the ancient Egyptians, were considered sacred because the cats once had been human beings, they thought, and were changed into cats as a punishment for evil deeds. The way I feel about cats, that might be true. They were considered to be familiar spirits. It was the Celts who chose the date of October 31st as their New Year's Eve, and on that night basically celebrated everything wicked, evil, or dead. It was believed that on their New Year's Eve, on October 31st, that the gates of hell that separated the worlds of the living and the dead were opened, and the souls of the dead were allowed to come back to the earth and to visit the very homes that they had departed and terrorize the living. These ancient people believed that the only way to satisfy these evil spirits was to set out food and provide shelter for them during that night. And if you didn't, they would trick you by casting a spell on you or by hurting you somehow. And so they lit bonfires to try to, some say, keep the spirits away. Others say to help guide the spirits. We're not sure, but the fires were lit at night, and it became part of the Halloween custom. Also, during their observance, they would gather around the campfire and they'd offer their animals or some of their crops or even sometimes human beings as sacrifices. This ancient Black Sabbath continued even after the Romans conquered the Celts around 43 AD. The Romans, however, added a ceremony honoring their goddess of fruit and trees, and that's how the custom of apple bobbing came into existence. It was part of the way to try to discern the future. It was a way of fortune telling. The lighted pumpkin face, or jack-o'-lantern, is an ancient symbol of a damned soul. They were named for a man named Jack, who could not enter heaven or hell. As a result, he was doomed to wander in darkness with his lantern until Judgment Day. And because they were fearful of evil spirits, people began to hollow out turnips and pumpkins, and some of them may be kind of gourd, and they would fill them with, put candles that were lit inside of them to scare away evil spirits from their houses. And occultists today still seriously observe Halloween as a Black Sabbath. It's one of the most important days of their year, or nights of their year. Now here's a spooky thing. All of this pagan occultism became associated with Christianity. After Christian missionaries preached the gospel to the Celtic peoples around 300-400 AD, their converts didn't put away their pagan practices, and the church sort of stood by and didn't do anything about it. It seems that the church began to redefine or baptize these pagan customs and just rename it. November 1st became celebrated as All Saints' Day by Pope Gregory IV in 835. He decided, well, the church could at least observe a holiday for those saints that didn't have a feast day for them during the regular liturgical year. Later, November 2nd was designated as All Souls' Day because the church realized that the people were still observing the pagan holiday in honor of damned souls. And so they thought, well, the church needs to step in and we need to have something to replace the Damned Souls Day. And so All Souls Day became observed. And both of these celebrations began on the evening before November 1st, October 31st. That evening is when they began. Well, over time, the church has been tricked by treats. History sort of verifies that. And today, millions of Christians will allow and even encourage their children to participate in the holiday with purely pagan and occultic origins. Their Halloween decorations will feature witches and brooms, cats, jack-o'-lanterns, and they may even bob for some apples. Some churches will fully sanction the event with parties held on their premises, and others will hold harvest parties to provide entertainment as an alternative for parents and children. You know what I think? I think we've been tricked by Satan's treats. He's a master at making evil looking good. And when you think about it, he's the original trick-or-treater.